Come on in. Welcome to Idled Out, where we talk all things Survivor. My name is Luke, and today we're talking about Survivor players who ran the game through chaos. Accidentally. It's one of my favorite types of player. They're as messy as you can be in Survivor. They have zero win equity, but players live and die on their whims. These are players who ran the game through uncontrolled chaos. So, players like Nora and Banu and even Angelina won't be here because even though they were distilled Survivor chaos, they weren't ruling their tribes with an iron grip. I also won't be including players who used chaos intentionally to advance the game, like Russell. That was his intended strategy. These are players who were so accidentally sloppy they unintentionally bent the entire game around their will as long as they were there. Today, chaos is a ladder, and these players were Tony, just barely hanging on. It's a fine line to walk, but you'll see where I'm going soon. And finally, I want to be clear. I love when players are driven by their emotional instincts. Screw the number crunching game bots, give me more players like these. So put on your scout uniform, speedrun voting out your tribe, and meet me at the Sugar Shack as we talk about 5 sloppy Survivor players who ran their tribes through chaos. At number 5 is Joel from Survivor Micronesia. Joel played probably the most intentional game on this list, which shows you the caliber of player we're gonna be working with. Joel's game was bonkers, and I'm not just talking about Chet hitting his head back there.
I'll get my head. I don't care. I know.
He came into the fans' tribe as an obvious leader and quickly found himself in a majority with the tribe against the trio of outsiders. When they lost the second immunity challenge, they had the biggest Survivor layup of all time. No one's gonna cry over spilled Chet. Just vote out Chet. He's right there. Instead of voting out Chet, Joel's ego got the better of him, and he became extremely paranoid about Mikey B because Mikey was able to count. Mikey just wanted to run scenarios in case of an idol, and Joel took that personally and organized a blindside against Mikey's showman's Mary to weaken him. Then Joel followed that up a few days later with a Mikey B boot because, hey, why not? What are you gonna do? Vote out Chet? The best way I can describe it is that Joel was making endgame moves at Final 19. Joel was an absolute control freak on Irai and would flip out if anyone had any conversations that didn't involve him. His ego dictated that he and he alone must control the tribe, and that led him to making some of the most chaotic, messiest, and needless overplays in Survivor history. The only reason I don't have Joel higher is because he was not long for the game. They say it's better to burn out than fade away, and few survivors exemplify that more than Joel. After the swap, Joel was immediately identified as a threat by Sari and promptly dispatched. The 2 people he originally wanted sent home instead of Mary and Mikey, Chet and Tracy, swapped with him, and they gleefully joined the majority to send him out of the game. Were Joel born 2,000 years ago, he would have been a barbarian warlord finding glory in the gladiatorial arena. Instead, he was undone by Chet. At number 4 is Lil from Survivor Pearl Islands. Lil cried more tears in this season, probably more than anyone else we've ever seen before or since. And Lil was MIA for 4 episodes. We didn't even see her from days 10 through 19. In pre-merge Morgan, Lil had basically zero control. In fact, if it's possible to have negative control, that's what she had. Andrew Savage and company promptly booted her third with little fanfare. Savage expected never to see Lil again, except maybe at the reunion where he could spit on her or something. But she came roaring back into the game on day 19 thanks to the Outcast twist. Did I say roaring? I meant crying.
Don't say that.
I'm sorry.
Thanks to Survivor's first ever battle back, third boot Lil was thrust back into the game alongside Burton, and suddenly found herself not only at the merge, but at the merge as the swing vote, caught between the Morgan tribe, who currently hated her guts, and Drake, who did not, currently, but will in the future. Because of her alliance with Burton, Lil found herself in an alliance by proxy with Johnny Fairplay, possibly the funniest alliance she could have ever ended up in. Once Savage and his minions were dispatched, Lil became the weepiest swing vote ever. It was fascinating. Fairplay would just look at her and she'd start bawling. Usually, it's much younger women who have that reaction to Johnny Fairplay. Lil was the deciding vote on every single post-merge elimination, and that was often decided by whoever spent the most time talking to her that particular round. She was responsible for power player after power player after power player leaving the game. She made sure Savage didn't make the jury. She poached Rhino. She crushed Rupert's dreams. She made Burton an outcast again. She sent the Mortician to the morgue, and she bodied Fairplay harder than Danny Bonaducci. And through it all, she was a sobbing mess. Is there a merit badge for crying? At number 3 is Cedric from Survivor 48. Cedric is the kindest, gentlest man to ever play Survivor, whose proclivity for pointlessly voting for his own allies bordered on a fetish. This is a guy who managed to vote for all 5 of his original tribe mates by the end of episode 3. No one has ever done that. That is a fucking superpower. Cedric is so fascinating to me. He absolutely ran pre-swap Vula, but my question is, did he know that? On paper, Cedric is the kind of player who is your basic ride or die, +1 loyal to the soil kind of guy. He's a human extra vote for anyone in an alliance with him, and that is the kind of game he came into Survivor wanting to play. Instead, he betrayed every alliance he ever made, voted for his allies every chance he got, and fumbled every challenge at the most inopportune moment possible, potentially just so he could go back to Tribal Council and vote for his friends. Cedric's social game was genuinely fantastic. He was the person on Vula everyone wanted to work with, but his strategic game was completely dictated by his emotions, meaning he'd make really strong bonds with people, make promises to them, then stab them, not even in the back, like stab them in the face. Take, for example, Cedric's votes in that nutty episode 3 Tribal Council. He first votes for Mary, and that's fair, she was the outsider. When her shot in the dark hit and he had to revote, he voted for Say, then Say again on a revote to protect his number 1, Justin. But when the boot came down to his decision and his decision alone, does he vote for Say, who he has voted for twice at this Tribal Council alone, and who, if she survives, will be very, very mad at him? No. He swaps to Justin. Why? Justin didn't tell him he lost his vote, or something. Dude, it's Say. She's going to stab you in your sleep at the swap when Bianca is actively trying to align with him and puts her trust in him and tells him she lost her vote. He just votes her out. What the hell? You can't win with this guy. Even from the jury, Cedric was making chaotic plays. With his vote for Joe, Cedric is responsible for the first Tribal Council without a 0-vote finalist since season 35. Cedric was either playing 8D chess or, like, checkers with a pigeon. I'm not sure we'll ever understand how his mind worked. At number 2 is Abby Maria in Survivor Philippines. It's hard to imagine a better start to the game in a 6-person tribe. Abby was on a winning team, had an instant +1, a close alliance with Pete, a 4-person majority on top of that with Scoopin, and a dedicated first boot in Lisa. Her allies were sharing important info with her. Then she undid it all in 12 simple words.
I am your friend. Me too. But if you with me, you're dead.
While Pete used intentional chaos in a Hansian sort of way, Abby's brand of chaos was generally dictated by her needless paranoia. She'd get ideas in her head and instantly become convinced of them, then very bluntly tell people where they stood with her. And though Tandang never went to pre-merge tribal, Abby was pretty much in the driver's seat along with Pete on whatever that vote would have been. As the winningest tribe in the season, a tribe who never went to tribal pre-merge, this early part of the game should have been a cakewalk. Instead, they were bordering on Kasaya levels of toxicity. Now at the merge, Abby's control of the game did wane, and she instead morphed into your classic cockroach player, the kind of player everyone spends the entire merge trying to squash, but who escapes the boot every time. Yet, even from the bottom, she still had her foot on this tribe's neck. Everyone lived in fear of what she might do next. You couldn't tell her anything or bring her in on a vote even if you wanted to, because she just might decide on a whim to blow you up, even if you're trying to save her. Abby is the kind of player who should always go home first in Survivor, but someone always gets greedy and tries to take her along for the ride. And we thank them for it. As many a player has found out, you play with the Brazilian dragon, you get burned. At number 1 is Sugar in Survivor Gabon, obviously. No player has ever been more erratic, more driven by emotion, yet had as much control as Sugar in Gabon. She's the biggest part of why this season is like the gas leak season. And once she stepped out from Ace's shadow late pre-merge, she was the driving force on pretty much every vote. She controlled the game, executing blindside after blindside after blindside. The entire game was warped around what she specifically wanted at any particular moment in time. And I think almost all of that was completely incidental. Despite her strategic chokehold on the game, Sugar had no interest in winning. She was more concerned with imposing her worldview and morality on the game, which emerged as the good guys should win. And Randy and Corinne were not the good guys. By happenstance, she found herself in the power position at the merge because she was constantly exiled pre-merge and spent more time in the Sugar Shack than the game proper. So she came into the merge more or less caught between the Onion Alliance, consisting of most of her original tribe mates from Coda, and the plucky underdogs of Thong, which is who she sided with. This is where her good versus evil view of Survivor crystallized, and I think a lot of that has to do with Sugar's father having recently passed shortly before the game started. She was in a very difficult headspace to play a game like Survivor, and she saw heroes and supportive people like Maddie and later Bob. She urged her allies to vote off her enemies in the most brutal and embarrassing ways possible.
This is not a hidden immunity idol.
She pulled off blindsides most winners could only dream about, and it was all driven by impulses which could and did change on a dime. She was completely winging Survivor, and that manifested itself accidentally in one of the most dominant strategic games ever played. She genuinely played a Kim Spradlin or Earl Cole tier strategic game while simultaneously having the win equity of Philip Shepard. Had this been her plan, had her gameplay been intentional, Sugar could have gone down as one of the most dominant winners of all time. If only she gave a fuck. Got nothing else for ya. Don't cry like Lil just because the video's over. Like and subscribe and I'll get you more Survivor content just like this. Until next time, don't get idled out.